Hello, everyone. Welcome to anyone and everyone watching on the replay. So glad to have you here. Just going to clear my throat real quick. Felt something tickly in there. Just going to open up my chat. I always have the chat open on these broadcasts, so just know if you're watching on the replay or if you're watching live, I always really appreciate engagement again, even on the replay, because it helps me see what people are getting from these talks and like any takeaways, any ahas, any light bulb moments. So, yeah, feel free to engage even if it's on the replay. So, you probably saw the title of today's talk. It is a talk about how world peace begins with peace within, and I'm going to share about why I am making that statement, the history behind that statement, if you will. So I'll share that in a little bit here. If you're brand new to me, hello. My given name is Timothy Waterman. I do sometimes go by the nickname of Bo. So if you ever see that name, you'll know why. It's just a nickname that I. It's a connection to my higher self, my soul energy. So, and there's a story behind that. So if you ever see that, that's why. Thank you to whoever's watching live. And again, I love interaction. So if you're here and you want to comment, if you want to jump in and share an aha, I love live interaction and again, interaction on the replay. And again, thanks so much for being here. If you are brand new to me, I am a life transformation guide and I am also a conscious channel. And the way those two work together is I help people transform their lives based on soul wisdom. And it's not just any soul wisdom. I help people get aligned with their soul wisdom, the soul wisdom that is in their own very heart. Intuition, you could say. There's these different names that we give this thing. However, most of us know there is that inner voice that's just inviting us to a different kind of life, a life that typically is more courageous, a life that is more loving, that is forgiving, that is peaceful, that is trusting of the bigger picture life, whatever you call that connection for you. So there is that voice, and I've talked to so many people and they're like, yeah, I know it's there. Like people say I don't always listen. However, people will also say, when I have listened, it has kind of turned out better. So most people know there is that deeper inner voice, which to me usually comes from like the heart or the gut or somewhere in between. And so I help people align with their soul wisdom to transform their lives, from the inside out, because that's what transformed my life was when I began to listen to my heart and soul, my intuition. Listening to my intuition completely changed everything. I began to live an entirely new life. And if you're curious about my own story, I do have a link in the description of this video, because this video will stay on my wall as a replay. So there is a link with my own transformation story that you can watch right here on Facebook or YouTube. And yeah, it's where I share how my listening to my intuition, my heart and soul, like literally changed everything. I was unhappy, I was unfulfilled, I was stressed, I was burnt out, I was having digestive issues, like really intense digestive issues that was not really allowing me to keep down food or water that well. Like it got bad uh, because I wasn't listening, because I was not listening to my heart and soul. When I began to listen, all that shifted, all that began to turn around. Like my health rapidly came back. My digestive issues cleared up. Didn't have to see any health practitioners about my gut. It just healed itself when I began listening to my heart and soul. So that's what I do as a life transformation guide. I help people see and identify where they're not listening to their own heart and soul so that they can then allow their heart and soul to transform their own lives. So that's a bit about what I do. So jumping into today's talk. Today's talk has to do with world peace, and of course, world peace. That's a big puzzle, And to me, that puzzle comes together when each one of us finds our own self being at peace. And the history of this epiphany for me is that while I was living in Los Angeles, because I lived there for about 7 years in my 30s, I was doing a lot of meditation, a lot of journaling, a lot of introspection, like, deep self inquiry. And one day I went into this, it was called a virtual float tank. I'm sure a lot of people have experienced like the floating therapy at this point where you float in a saltwater bath. Well, this was something that kind of simulated that feeling of floating. It was in a virtual tank. Well, it was a real tank, but it was like virtually simulating it with the motion that this tank did. And then you wore goggles and you listen to music, and it puts you in a very similar um, transcended state, if you will. And so before I got into this session, I asked the question. I said, when will the world know peace? Because I'm someone who's deeply connected to my heart. I care for all of life. I care for the animals. I care for the insects too. I care for the trees and the bees and the flowers and the leaves. So, it's been important to me. Like, I have a desire to see the world at peace. Like, I don't want to see, people hurting each other. That does not, I don't, I don't like to see that. It doesn't feel good to see that. And so I asked this question before I got in the session. And while in the session, I heard that voice from within my heart, a very distinct, clear, certain certain voice that said, the world will know peace when each individual knows peace. And those soul answers, they just make so much sense. The answers that come from this space, they just make so much sense. I'm like, and then then my mind goes, of course, that makes so much sense. When each person, individual being knows peace, then the world will be at peace. Technically, the world is not at peace until every last being is at peace. Even if there's five beings less, 5 beings left that are not at peace, well, that's not world peace, because there's still 5 beings that are not at peace. And so in that moment, my mind was like, oh my gosh, that heart and soul wisdom just makes so much sense. And so, I'll never forget that moment. And, I realized how important it was for me to continue to move towards peace myself. And this was many years ago. This was probably like 5 or 6 years ago at this point. And so, I've been continuing to do the healing work over the years, like seeing where I'm not at peace, seeing where I'm not trusting of the greater life, whether you call the bigger picture, God or source or the universe, whatever you refer to the big picture as, like if we're not trusting of the bigger picture, that can result in fear in our everyday life. And fear is not peace. I'm sure you could probably attest to that for yourself, that fear is not peace. Panic is not peace. Overwhelm is not peace. Um, Being burned out is not peace. uh, Being in having strife in our relationships, that's not peace. And so I've been identifying, over the years, like, where am I not at peace? Where am I not trusting of the greater picture? Where do I still go into fear? What life situations do I allow myself to go into panic over? Because panic is not peace, panic is not trust. And I can certainly attest that every circumstance, no matter what is going on, I show up much better if I'm in a centered place of calm. Like the panic, the overwhelm, the the going bonkers with stress because I'm reacting over some circumstance, that doesn't help anything. That just makes things worse, and it puts my body into this fight or flight space, which releases all these really intense stress chemicals. So that never helps anything. Like, no matter what the situation is, if I am centered and calm, that only helps whatever's going on, whatever's going on, no matter how heightened the circumstances may be, that calm center place is way better in my experience. So all that to say that I've continued to identify, like, where am I not at peace, and what is my soul asking me to work on so I can experience greater peace for myself, because I'm a part of the picture. I'm here on earth. So if I'm not at peace, then, there cannot be world peace. And the same goes for you and everyone else. And so that's the first key thing, is to really recognize, oh, wow, like this really involves me, because it's not an outside thing. We cannot force other people to be at peace. It has to be a choice, something that is chosen from within. And something that is chosen because it's just something that being, that person is ready for. They're willing to make a commitment that I want to choose peace. I want to be committed to peace. I see how my peace impacts the whole. I see how until I'm at peace, the world itself cannot know peace. When someone's ready to make that connection, when they're ready to see that, then it makes sense for them. Then it's a true, sincere desire for them. So this is not anything that we can force on anyone else. It really has, the benefit of ourselves being at peace really has to be seen from within. And so one of the greatest opportunities that we have is to be an example of someone who is at greater peace, and greater peace until that's all we know is peace. And there is a dimension of consciousness where that is available, that exists, and we will learn how to stay in that state of peace. We will no longer give our power away to circumstances outside ourselves and lose control, kind of like go bonkers in the moment with all of our reactions, if you will. There is a state of consciousness where we can really solidify ourselves into that space of just peace and knowing that all is well. And in metaphysics, in the world of spirituality, that's typically referred to the fifth dimension of consciousness, because these human beings are our avatars, and our consciousness is what is experiencing the senses of the avatar. So our consciousness is looking through the eyes. Our consciousness is receiving the data from our smells, what we smell, what we touch, all of these things, the temperature in the room. So our avatar, if you will, our human avatar, is giving feedback to our soul. And so there's different states of consciousness that we can kind of like go between. And in the third dimension of consciousness, this is where typically, there's a lot of fear. There's, a lot of big reactions to life circumstances where we may go into panic and high volumes of stress, because in that third dimension of consciousness, we don't really recognize that we are life itself. We feel separate from life, and we feel like things are happening to us and against us, trying to harm us because we feel separate from the bigger picture. And so that's where people typically experience a lot of those reactions, and they say, why is this happening to me? Bad things always happen to me. I have bad luck, all these things, because they feel separate. They feel that life is against them. Uh, and this is a journey, this is an unfolding. Like, I know it all sounds so easy just by me talking about it, but I'm just planting seeds here, planting seeds of awareness if this speaks to you, because that's the other important thing. Like, I'm just offering what I've remembered, what I've realized by going on a journey with my heart and soul, and these are just awarenesses that I've arrived at. So they may speak to you at this moment, they may not. That's up to you to feel into your own heart and soul if there's resonance with what I'm saying. And if there's not resonance, then you can just move on until you find something that you do feel resonance with. So again, all that to say, like, none of these are not like shoulds or have tos. These are just me sharing what I've remembered, what feels true within my heart and soul. And it's just up to you to contemplate it for yourself. And so in terms of consciousness, we can align with a more expanded consciousness, a greater awareness that we are life itself, that, all consciousness comes from the same place, the same creator, the same source. And so the consciousness that is in nature, the trees, the animals, is the same consciousness that is in me. And so therefore, life is not doing anything to me. Uh, Life is always inviting me into a greater understanding of the whole picture. It's inviting me into a place of feeling more empowered, to where I recognize that the power of my creator self is within me, not outside of me. And when I align with that creator source, that is where the peace that passeth all understanding, that statement, the peace that passes all understanding, that's referring to the connection to the creator of all that is within us. And again, I feel that connection to the creator of all that is within my heart. That's the seat of my soul. And so when we align with that place, that's where we can be steady, even if the circumstances are grave. Even if there's like a tornado moving through the scene, again, that centered, empowered place to me will be a much greater place to be in than any kind of panic, stress, overwhelm, a highly reactive state. And so we can, to bring it back to the levels of consciousness, we can remember how to align with that expanded fifth dimensional consciousness where we remember what unconditional love is, where we're not loving other people based on their circumstances or based on their appearance. We're loving them because they are just as much a piece of existence as we are. Doesn't mean we have to be in favor of all of their behaviors. They may have behaviors that we don't prefer because there's a lot of variety in creation. That's a part of the Earth equation, is lots and lots of variety, and we have the right to our preferences. And so there can be another being where we don't prefer some of their behaviors. However, we still have the love underneath, recognizing that they are part of creation just as much as I am. They come from the same creative source. So that's unconditional love, where it's not saying, I love you because, of these reasons. It's, I love you because you are. I love you because you exist. And we may have differences and we don't have to necessarily line up on every single thing. However, there is that love underneath it all. And so these are more of the qualities of the fifth dimensional state of being, which is something we can allow ourselves back into as we let go of the things that just aren't aligned with that state of being. And the fifth dimension of consciousness is very much about what we typically have heard of in terms of the fruits of the spirit. So again, unconditional love, peace, greater faith until we have a sense of knowing. Because faith is a stepping stone to help us remember that we are a part of the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is also us, and it's for us. So faith is a bit of a stepping stone until we just know that everything that's happening is for the greater expansion of our heart and soul while we're having this human experience, because that's essentially what the human is doing here. It's here to expand. It's here to experience itself in a physical form, because souls are non-physical. They are of spirit. So this is a chance to explore the soul self in a physical form with a lot of variety and many other beings who are very different than us in a lot of ways, but also very much the same as us in a lot of ways. And so we're here, and because there's free will, we can kind of forget who we are, and we can go into the really disliking people, really disliking people for who they are because we forget who they are. Hi, Darren and Luna. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for all the hearts. So yeah, with our free will, we can forget who we are, and that brings us into the division, the destruction, you know, a lot of people find themselves being really appalled at the destruction of nature. Well, that happens when we forget who we are, that we forget that nature is our original home. And Darren and Luna, thank you so much. I'm glad that you agree. So glad that you agree. Uh, so a lot of the things that when we look out, when we see that don't feel in the world, that don't feel good for us to see on that heart level, they come from that state of forgetting who we are, the forgetfulness. And in the forgetfulness, we divide, we destroy, we consume in harmful ways, we, self destruct in harmful ways. And sometimes the self destructing becomes so vast that then that self destruction becomes destruction of things outside oneself, environments, or sometimes it causes harm to other people because the self destruction has become so vast. And these are all what happens in the state of forgetting. And, because we have free will, this is allowed to happen. We're allowed to forget. And that's why it's an individual experience for one to just decide from within, like, does the destruction at the end of the day feel good to me? Does the forgetting at the end of the day feel good for me? And if it doesn't, if the forgetting, the division, the destruction doesn't feel good, there is that voice on the inside that'll be saying, hey, remember me? There's a different way. There's the heart way, there's the remembering way, there's the coming back to love way, because love unites, love brings together, love is harmonious. And so when each being is ready to say, like, okay, I'm not fulfilled or happy or satisfied with the division and the destruction and all of these other things, then that voice will be there. It's always there until we're willing to give it our attention. When we give it our attention, it'll just lead us down a different path that is about healing, healing ourselves first and foremost. The more that we heal, the more that we are able to be a part of healing experiences for others. I'm on here doing this talk because of all of the healing that I've experienced for myself, and I've done a lot over the past 12 years. Still some things I'm currently working on and practice in my everyday life, because healing is very much a letting go of patterns, of protective patterns, fear-based patterns, patterns where I still haven't allowed myself to trust, and so, or not to love unconditionally. So I still have things that I'm working out in my everyday life. I see them, I know what they are, I'm very aware, and I have the ability to choose to practice each and every day until, I am just more naturally forgiving, I'm just more naturally trusting, uh, more naturally allowing for life to unfold in the way that it wants to unfold rather than me trying to stress about controlling it all. So again, when we're ready to lean in and step towards more peace, we do have a guide. We don't have to figure it out for ourselves. That guide is within. And to me, it's a very steady voice. It doesn't waver. It's very steadfast, very to the point, says what it says, gives the next step. It doesn't give 10,000 steps down the road, it gives the next step for this now moment, for this moment that we find ourselves in. And when I have listened to that, when I've taken the action that's invited me to take based on that heart voice, that's where my life has continued to transform and to heal. And that's helped me to heal the different circumstances and situations in my life. And so that's been my own personal journey towards greater peace, because I do desire a greater experience of peace on earth until there is world peace. So I'm doing my part. I am I am still doing the work that my soul has shown me that I get to do to become that version of me that knows true peace, who is steadily at peace. And there's the same opportunity for you, if you so decide, if you feel that world peace is also important to you. Uh, Darren and Luna says, "Yep, always come to the heart." Yes, and this isn't anything new either. I mean, I'm sure many people have had the experience, I would imagine, where you're in a room with a newborn, or you're in a room with a puppy or a kitten, as long as you don't have aversion to puppies or kittens. uh, but I'm sure you can imagine when you see something so sweet and innocent and just freshly new to this world, most people drop right into their heart because they're just seeing something so precious, life in a brand new form. And we can feel the newness of it, that this is something that has a gift, from the spiritual world, like a soul has come to earth and in a new form. And so people usually go right into their heart and they feel, I imagine in that moment, they probably feel peace. That's what happens for me when I'm in a room, with a newborn or a puppy or a kitten. I go right into my heart and I feel that deep sense of peace within my heart. So these wisdom sayings don't just exist for no reason. The peace that passeth all understanding. That's a wisdom phrase that has been handed down through time for a reason because it's there. It's in the heart. At least that's where I always find it. It's in the heart. And that connection brings me fully into the moment. It brings me out of, any kind of overwhelming or negative thought, brings me here and now to where I can enjoy life in the moment with my senses. Like these senses exist for us to be able to enjoy a physical environment, taste, touch, sight, smell. These senses exist so that we can enjoy them in a rich environment with many different smells, many different tastes, many different textures, and we can only enjoy them when we're connected to them in the moment. We can be in a room with really rich smell, but if we are wound up in the mind with like obsessive thought, we may not even be aware that we're even smelling it. And so, again, when we identify what's keeping us from peace, from true presence in the moment, from that connected center place in the moment, that's where the practice comes in. That's the everyday practice from the level of the soul, if you will. And that's something that I continue to make very important for me. And so, again, that's the invitation that I'm extending out. So, if you ask yourself, where am I not at peace? Like, do I still go into heavy amounts of stress? Do I not trust the bigger picture? Do I not trust my intuition? Do I still, allow anger to consume me or resentment to consume me? Bitterness, where are the areas that are really not allowing you to experience a greater sense of peace? And the answer will vary for everyone, and this isn't about being right or wrong. This isn't about feeling shame about any of that. It's just that how important is that peace to you for yourself, but also for the world? Like, how, if world peace really does matter to you, this is the ultimate question. Okay, well, world peace doesn't happen without my peace. So what am I still turning my attention to that keeps me from experiencing more of that peace, if that makes sense? So that's the question that I'm inviting to contemplate. Could be something powerful to journal on, find your own answers. And again, as I found my answers, I'm doing the work each and every day, the work that my soul has shown me that I can do to allow greater peace first and foremost for myself. So I hope this has spoken to you on some level, maybe many levels. Thank you so much for Darren and Luna and anyone else who has watched live. Again, if you're on the replay and you'd like to, share any ahas you've had on the replay, I always love to see that. And yeah, if this message has inspired you and you'd like to pass it on, there's many different ways you can share this broadcast, whether you send it in a direct message to someone or repost it or post it to your story. There's lots of different ways that you can pass this message along if it has served you and inspired you in some way. So I just want to make sure I mentioned that. I will be doing more broadcasts this week. I'm going to plan on doing a 10:30 a.m. Eastern tomorrow and Friday. The broadcast I'll be doing tomorrow morning will be on it'll be a talk on why we tend to be so harsh towards ourselves, those harsh critical voices that we tend to hear on the mental plane. Why we tend to have those voices, and I'll offer some of the tools that I've found to begin to shift those voices, to reorient those voices, and also just to let go of those perspectives, so those negative perspectives are not ones that I'm really holding on to the way that I used to hold on to them. And then the Friday morning talk will be on uh, what we are looking for is what is looking. That's a pretty famous quote that's been passed down through the ages. That what we are looking for is what is looking, and just a hint that's talking about consciousness, that we're looking for that connection with our soul. And so I'll be expanding on that wisdom quote that's been passed down through the ages. What we're looking for is what is looking. So that's a bit about what you can expect on Thursday and Friday of this week. Lastly, if you are on a spiritual path, and you're wanting to go deeper, and you're looking for some guidance, you're looking to work with a mentor, that is something that I offer. I do work with people as a spiritual mentor and guide. So I do have a free introductory session just to get to know me a little bit, to ask me questions. You can call it like a discovery call of like 20 to 25 minutes, in case you're considering doing that type of work, like spiritual mentoring. So if that's something you're interested in, just like a discovery call, you get to know me a little bit more and ask me some questions about the work that I do, feel free to send me a message, just a direct message, uh, or you can leave a comment, on this video, and just say, like, discovery call, just comment discovery call, and I'll be happy to reach out and to connect with you. There's that, and then also, if you've seen any of my channeling work and that resonates with you, I do have sample sessions for my channeling work of 15 minutes, so you can get a taste of what it's like to, just interact with the wisdom that comes from my soul. That's what I channel, is the wisdom of my own heart and soul, from that grander perspective of intelligence, infinite intelligence, you could say. And so I do have 15-minute sample sessions where you can get a taste and see, if you like the sample and you want to invest in a full session, then we can have that discussion after the sample session. So if you're interested in that, you can find a link to my website in the description of this video. And you can just go right to my website, and there's a whole page about, what I do, why I do it, what to expect, and then also a way that you can schedule one of those 15-minute sampled channeled sessions if you'd like. So yeah, there's some opportunities there if you'd like to go deeper. And otherwise, maybe I'll see you tomorrow and Thursday on one of these other live broadcasts. So thanks again for watching. Truly appreciate you being here. And until next time, much love and namaste.